Now I can talk, and I will turn my video on for a minute here. So welcome. I'm glad that you're here. Um, I'm Marty Olsen, and I have been in ABE for about 30 years and training about 25 of those years. Um, in fact, some of you may not know what I'm talking about, but when I first started training, it was with an overhead projector and transparencies. And I had about 3 inches of transparencies to go through. So if you remember overhead projectors, you can imagine what a mess that was. So we have come a long way in the last 20 years or so. So it's good to be here. I will, let's see, I'll go to the next slide here to remind you that this session is basically for people who've been certified previously. And so then it counts as recertification, which you need to do at least every 5 years. But I will be giving you updated information today. So hopefully that will be helpful as you work in your programs. So I've already introduced myself. Today we're going to look at what is the most updated information as far as the CASAS tests and the approved tests. We're going to talk just briefly about test implementation, review some of the important things that you need to know about that. We will look at CASAS tools to assist targeting instruction. Whether you're a teacher or a support staff or administrator, it's good that you know that those things are available to the teachers and can point those out. If you're not using them yourself, you still, it's important for you to know where to find those tools. And then reports, resources, and support. All of that, again, it's important. If you're not running reports, okay, but maybe you can request reports and know the things that are available out there for you to request. So, who is eligible to administer assessments? Basically, staff have to have gone through a CASAS implementation training with a certified trainer or have completed specific modules that CASAS has on their website. And then also staff who've completed their every 5 years recertification. So that information should be, when you actually were certified or recertified, should be found now in your SID file. So you can ask your administrator to tell you if you're not sure when that date was. So let's just go over some of the basics of CASAS, things that I say at every training, but these are things that are important to remember. So first of all, CASAS is a standardized test. So what does that mean? Briefly, it means that tests should be administered the same time each time they're administered. The experience should be the same for the student, the tester, every time they take the test, even if they've been around a while and have taken many tests. In order to maintain standardization, that needs to remain the same. So in order to do that, there are some documents that proctors can download and follow. One is the steps for test day, and the second one is the script. There is a script actually to follow, again, so that the experience is the same for all students at every time they test. So here's just a copy of each of those, but you'll be able to link to those on the previous page and download this information for all of your proctors. Something that's important for proctors to remember is they should stress to the test takers, don't guess, because if students guess, then the teachers may, they could guess right. If the chances are 3 or 4 questions, the chances are they're going to guess some right. If they're guessing, the teacher is going to make some assumptions about what they know and perhaps not include certain things that need to be included in instruction. So this is one important thing. Another thing that I would stress as far as proctors is they need to stay in the room with the testers at all times. They need to maintain a, a pretty quiet attitude. They can answer the basic questions about demographic information, but nothing else. So, and all of that is found on the proctor training, which they should have completed. The next thing we want to talk about is the NRS tests that are approved and the dates that they're approved. So let's look at the ESL assessments. These are called steps, and we have reading steps and we have listening steps. Both of these tests were approved for 7 years. So that is now currently going to go through 2030. So it's nice to know we don't have new tests coming out quite now or quite yet. So we'll be able to learn to use these tests and use the results. What's important to know is both of these STEPS tests have 5 levels, which is nice. It helps to really sort your students out as far as their skills and current abilities. These tests are aligned to the English language proficiency standards, which align to the career and college and career readiness standards. So those are the standards we're using here in Minnesota. These tests are, and this is important, appropriate for learners for whom English is not their first language. And then when a learner gets to a score of 241 or so, then it's a good time to transition them. Some programs choose to transition sooner than that, but you don't have to. You can still use these tests through that score of 241. And a reminder that the life and work tests, which we've had for quite a few years now, are no longer NRS reportable. They need to be destroyed, hopefully shredded. Okay, for ABE, there is a separate series. It's called Goals 2. And the newest one approved was the Reading Goals 2, which was approved this summer by NRS, and Minnesota also approved it fairly quickly. And then what they have done is the Reading Goals, which was the previous test, the approval was extended for 1 year through June 30th of next year. And that allows us not to have to go too quickly through transition, but to be able to use Reading Goals as a post-test for those learners who've already tested with Reading Goals. And then we can switch them at any point to Reading Goals 2. And Math Goals 2 was also approved for 7 years, and that will go through 2030, the approval. The reading or the goals test, both reading and math, were designed for learners for whom English is their first language, and then also for English language learners when they've achieved that 241 or higher on the STEPS test. Now, Math Goals 2 is the only math test that's available in the CASAS suite. So if you want to test some of your students in math, because you're going to include math as part of your curriculum, you can do that. You can give them that Math Goals 2 test, knowing that they do have to have some reading skills to be able to do it. But if you do that, what happens is your Your student may have an ESL in EFL, educational functioning level, in reading or listening, and then also an ABE score level in math. So, and that's okay. And just a reminder, these tests are aligned to the college and career readiness standards. Next thing we want to look at is training. We do right now, this is considered in person, even though we're over the internet, but it is in person. You've got me live that you can ask questions of and listen to. There's also online training, and CASAS has a really robust training page. And I just wanted, you can see at the bottom here, that's just part of the page. It's much longer than that. But to be certified to administer tests, there are quite a few options. First of all, there's Module 1, which just gives the basics of CASAS, and everybody can go through that one. Then there's the Module 3, which is launching paper tests, and it includes proctor certification. Very important that proctors do this training and understand the importance of their job as they are proctoring tests. For those of you who are interested in e-tests, and that is more and more of you all the time, there is a module, Module 2, and it's a it's been updated in the last year, and it's a very engaging modules. It's got interaction, and it just is really helpful to understand the application of e-tests. If you have someone who's going to be a coordinator and help set up the tests, there's a coordinator certification. And for those who are going to be proctors, there's an e-test certification. So all of these are important for your staff to participate in. Then there's a TOPS Pro Enterprise introduction. And that's if you're using e-tests in any way, or wanting to keep some track of tests in TOPS Pro. That's a good introduction to understand what is available in TOPS Pro Enterprise. Okay, let's look at resources that are found in all of these new test series. So this would be something you can see on the homepage of CASAS. You can click on this to learn about all their assessments. And when you come to that page, you're going to see all of these are the new tests that are available to you currently. So if you click on any of them, you're going to have some options that are going to look similar but specific to that test. So if we go to the reading goals 2, you'll see there's information above this, but the documentation has a lot of information, PDFs that you can download. FAQs, always good to know more about the test. But then these blueprints, we'll take a look at what they look like, but all of these are available. This one happens to be for reading goals 2, but you can find them for all of the other tests as well. And then grade level equivalence helps especially teachers to take a look at what is the level. If I have this specific scale score, what does that mean in terms of the type of information that is and how it's presented to the learners. So grade level equivalents help to understand where your students are academically. There are also sample test items. These are really helpful for use in the classroom to help prepare students to take tests. You can, if you download these, you can either print them or there's an online option that you can use as well. Using these will help you prepare your students to take a multiple choice test, to understand what that looks like. How do you decide which A, B, C, or D to choose? So these sample test items, though they can't be used for placement, that's not the idea. The idea is these help you to instruct your students better on how to take a test, a multiple choice test. So I mentioned those blueprints. These are the content, just samples of the content standard blueprints. If you look at this, each of these blueprints are going to look like this, and they'll have at the top a circle graph that shows what the areas are. In this case, we're talking content standards. So they're looking at vocabulary, details, main idea, and inference. This happens to be level B. If you look at this down below, you also see a chart that details a little bit more what that means about vocabulary. 24%. Okay, we're getting into academic words. Well, this is reading goals too. So we need to start looking at academic words, start building that vocabulary for our students, and so forth. So what does details mean? Well, it means these three things. Um, Key details, understanding text features and structure, and comparing details between texts. So you can see it's growing knowledge by looking at these areas. So if we look here at the level E, the highest level of test, it's similar topics, but then we've added point of view and supporting evidence. So, and that's a big area by the time you get to level E. And then you can look down below to see, okay, well, we're still doing academic words, but we've added in figurative language. And then what is point of view? Well, that author's point of view and supporting evidence to identify that author's point of view. So these blueprints really give an instructor a lot of information about what sort of information is tested at each level of the CASAS test. I mentioned those grade level equivalents. So this is what those look like. And we're not going to spend a lot of time. I put these in here so that you can take a look at them at your leisure, but you can see that there's the NRS levels, the ESL level names, because some programs prefer to call their program classroom classes by these level names. Some use the level numbers, the NRS level numbers. And then look at the corresponding scale scores that go with each of these and the grade level. So this is for reading steps, listening steps, and then there's one for reading goals 2 and math goals 2. Reading goals has one as well, but again, we're phasing that out. Okay. I see we always add the grade level equivalent as a secondary score, which is a good way. As I said, I really like the grade level equivalent, not necessarily to use it with students, but it's something that's nice for the teachers to understand their student a little bit better. And yeah, I like that 0.5 for K because K is not a number option. That makes sense too. Okay, so I've given you some basic information about the new tests and what's going on in testing, but let's take a look. I kind of think of this as a lightning round. What do you know? What can you tell me? Can you answer these questions or these things that we need to continue to talk about? So these are true or false questions, and you can put in the chat your answer. True or false, local programs can certify their own test proctors on their way of using CASAS tests and give them access to CASAS test materials. Is this true or false? Okay. I do see a couple of falses, which is good. So you know what we're doing. Okay, people need to be certified prior to testing. So, yes, you have some things in your program that are specific to your program, but first is the CASAS way. You need to have your people certified either um, by doing a training with a state trainer or doing a training on that training page on the CASAS website. So exactly, you can then, after that, you can go ahead and train them in whatever specific things you need them to do. But these are the things that need to be done, and they need to submit that security agreement and just agree to maintaining the standardization and security of the test. Okay, true or false, local programs can give some accommodations without contacting CASAS. And I would add, or the state office. Can they do that? True or false? Okay, I'm seeing some truths, and that is true. You don't need to get special permission to offer accommodations. The CASAS does have a quite a bit on accommodations on their website. And also we have Panda in Minnesota, and they offer a lot of information about accommodations as well. Um, and it's important to note that what you should do is, here's some possible accommodations, certainly not an extensive list, but these are some accommodations possibilities. Make sure that these are noted in the student's SID file so that the next person who gives the test can also offer these same accommodations. So um, that the same, because the accommodations will be same, you can um, compare their previous pretest with the new test. Okay, true or false? Old test series can be saved to use for practice and for instruction. Oh, that you guys are fast on this one. This is definitely false. CASAS wants you to make sure to shred those old tests. They're not to be used for instructional purposes. And the test security policy has the procedures that they would recommend for shredding those tests. How about this? Test takers can finish the last question they're working on, even if their time is up. So CASAS, remember, is a standardized test, and there is a time limit on each of the tests. Can you allow students a few minutes? Okay. Oh, you guys are good. Yes, you can go ahead, and the policy for CASAS says that if they're working on a specific question, let them finish that question. Now, this doesn't mean you give them an extra 15 minutes, just a couple minutes to finish the question they're working on and then stop. Okay, so you did really well in the lightning round. You're all very CASAS knowledgeable. So what's the next thing we want to talk about? We want to look at the scoring. Okay. So let's, again, I think you probably understand this since you did so well on the lightning round, but each CASAS test has accurate, inaccurate, and conservative estimate scores. So the accurate is where we would really like our students to fall. And it's a mid-range score. It helps the teacher to be able to look at what the student knows and what they need to work on. Now, inaccurate scores are those scores that are on the low end, and we call them scores, but they're not even scores, they're asterisks. You cannot report these scores. If a student falls in this range, they need to take the next easier test to get a reportable score. And finally, conservative estimate scores. These scores have diamonds, and you'll note they don't get higher. Once they've reached the highest level, that score remains the same. Basically, these scores, if a student falls in this level on a pretest, I would say retest them. This test was too easy. You're not going to learn anything about their needs if they're scoring so high on the test. So they should really move to the next higher level test. On the other hand, if a student scores in this conservative estimate range, if on a post test, because their pretest was in the accurate range, that's going to show learning growth and definitely a good reportable score for that student. One change that happened about a year ago was in the level A scoring. Originally, their level A had these scores that are here currently, right on this page in red. They were actually asterisk scores. And then it was like, but what do? I can't enroll my student because it's an asterisk, and yet they're not scoring. They're getting 0, 1, 2, or 3 correct. They're really on the low end, beginning literacy. So CASAS did work with Octave and was able to agree that if a student is scoring in this low range, you can report a score of 160 and move ahead. I would say let the student try taking that level A test, but we don't want them to struggle with it. So go ahead, give them an opportunity to take the test. And then if you see frustration or inability, you can go ahead and give them that 160. I would not encourage just automatically giving a 160 without at least trying. So remember, this applies to only the level A's. For the rest of the tests, the levels, level B, C, D, and E, you still have those asterisks, and you follow the instructions about retesting if they do fall into that asterisk range. Okay, and then let's take a look at analyzing the results and reporting. So steps and goals 2 do not have the item by item analysis checklist that you might have found in the life and work tests. In fact, you did find in that. So if you're aware of those, they're no longer available in the steps and the goals 2. So what has to happen in order to generate a test is you need to be using the TOPS Pro Enterprise system, which you would get if you're using eTests. So let's look at how that might work. eTests is where you're testing your student on the computer. Not everybody in the state is doing that yet, but that is something that is available. And then if you do that, you take the test and the test is scored, and then you're also able to automatically generate the reports that you might want. So e-test is a good way to do that, but there's certainly you need to learn how to use e-tests. You have to purchase e-tests and so forth. So there's more information. We're not going to go into that right now, but there's a going live on the website and a going live checklist that would help you follow that process if that's something you want to do. So that's one way, and there's all sorts of reports that you can generate if you use e-tests. But the other option is paper tests, paper with the pencil. And of course, these tests that's the way many programs are using the tests right now. So how do you score them? Well, you can scan them. You have to use the official CASAS answer sheets, and those can be scanned on a Scantron. Or that you can correct those using the test administration manual, but you won't be able to have any of the reports if you just do it that way. So what you can do is you can still do the paper test, and you can manually enter the student data. And then it's just like they took the test on the e-test, and it'll be in the computer, in the program, and you'd be able to generate tests. So both of these routes will allow you to generate some sort of a test. So let's look at how do we do that if you're not doing e-tests. Well, you still need to have a TOPS Pro Enterprise account. Now, you may be working for a larger consortium that has some people are using TOPS Pro and others are not. So if you gain access to that through your manager or your data manager, that would be one way. Another way is if you are not, or if you're a program that needs to start using TOPS Pro Enterprise and you haven't done that yet, you can actually purchase some e-tests. Whether you use them right now or not doesn't matter, because e-tests are they last forever. So maybe you're not ready to implement them, but you want to start using TOPS Pro Enterprise. Basically, you can purchase 100 e-tests, and that will give you those e-tests and access to TOPS Pro Enterprise. And the cost for that would run you about between $365 and $390, I think, or $95, something like that. So it's not free, but it is a lower, it's less than $500 if you can find that in your budget. We have purchased TOPS Pro test administrations, but we don't have any available yet this year. So perhaps next year we'll have some, but something to think about. If you do gain access to TOPS Pro Enterprise in one of the methods that I've recommended, then you can follow those instructions here. And I won't go through those. It takes a little bit of time, but there's a link to instructions using your TOPS Pro Enterprise results. And you would follow the instructions, and then you can put the letters that the student answered. So they did it on paper. You put their paper answers into the computer. See here, it's the number 19 we don't have yet, and you would go through. Once you've done that, you will be able to score the test and you'll be able to generate reports. So that's another option for generating test results and reports. So what do those reports look like? This is a student content student content standard performance test for a student. So you'll see it's the same things that we looked at: vocabulary, details, main idea, and inference. But now you can see specifically how this particular student, last name, first name, we don't have an actual name in here, but we can also look at their raw score, their scale score, so their results. Basically, CASAS recommends that a student has to get at least 70% to show that they have partial proficiency in that area. So this student with 55% in details and 33% in inference, we know that they need some work in those areas. But these other two areas, vocabulary and main idea, they're getting to that proficiency, partial to proficient, for those two areas. This is an individual skills profile, and you'll see that you get some of the same information, but this one actually has 2 tests on it. So the information for 2 tests, and you'll see that this information is like the previous one. The previous one had a lot of color and easy to look at. This one, you just have to read a little bit more. And you will note, not on this one because it's an ESL test, but the high school equivalency predictor would also be on if this was an ABE learner. Another test or another report that I like to use with students is this one, because it tells the student, what test they took, what their score was, what their level is, and then this will show them where they are on the continuum right now. And hopefully you can say, but last time you took this test, you were maybe down here in level 4, so that you can show the student their progress. Also, this tells the student something about their current skills, their current abilities, and even, what are some of the things they might be able to use as they look for a job. Okay. So, are there any questions? I haven't seen any in the chat. If you do have questions, please feel free to put them there. Otherwise, as you're thinking about that, I will remind you that you need to advise your data manager that you completed this today. And if you need me to verify, you will get CEUs for the day, but if you need me to verify, please let me know. I do want to share a little bit about what CASAS can do for you. They are great at their customer service and support. So they provide webinars, they have live office hours, and the tech support is outstanding. So basically, if you need some more information on training, there's a link there. These are 2 things, Teacher Portal and eWorks, that we have not implemented yet in Minnesota, but we're looking at them. There are some programs that have started to look at them, and hopefully we'll get more proficient in the use of them. eWorks is a nice program that helps to identify soft skills that a student has and that they should be working on. And then there's always the tech support. You can always email them at techsupport@casas.org. And then they do have office hours, so you send them questions, you sign up for office hours, tell them what your question is, and they can meet with you either one-on-one or in a small group. And these are generally on Fridays. So you'd have to go in and sign up for one of those. And it's actually 1 o'clock here in Minnesota. So there's the link for signing up for that. And then they do regularly have webinars, just to keep everybody updated on current tests, what's happening, current programs around the country, successes, things that are happening in those programs that maybe you could add to your program. Okay, and here are the some of the links to the different emails that you could contact. And that's it. Certainly feel free to contact me if you have questions. I did mention this morning that we are starting a remote testing hub. So if you are doing e-testing and are thinking it would be nice to have somebody else do the post-testing for your program, or at least for some of the students in your program, contact me and I'll let you know what you could do to try out our remote testing hub. So I'm still seeing no questions. Gail has put the link to the materials folder, and that I'll get this PowerPoint in there after this session. There's lunch next, so I hope you all get a good lunch. And then 1 o'clock this afternoon, you can come back, check your agenda, and choose sessions for the afternoon.